And now we want to welcome a wonderful, wonderful person, Kate Brownfield. Come and join us, Kate. Hey, there's Kate. Hi, Kate. Welcome, Kate. And I
Thank
want to
you.
do.
Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for being with us. And I want to do a short introduction of all the wonderful, wonderful things you have done in your career. And Kate is a certified ADHD parent coach, and she is one of the best. She's the founder of ADHD Kids Can Thrive coaching practice, and she has a top-rated ADHD podcast called the ADHD Kids Can Thrive podcast. And we were honored to be part of your podcast. I think it was January 3rd, actually, we joined you this year. And just a wonderful story you have, and it was an honor being part of the podcast with you, and we appreciate it. She's also written a wonderful book. If you get a chance, you should get this book, How We Roll: Parent's Journey on Raising a Child with ADHD. Kate, I'm going to turn it over to you. Great to have you with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to share my slides, right? All right, everybody. I am looking forward to this. Please hold while I get the slideshow going. Okay, here we go. Everybody can see my slides. I'm Kate, as Anthony said, and it's a pleasure to be here. And this morning here on the West Coast, it's 7 a.m. It may be sunny and the sun may be up where you're at. I'm going to share today perfect advice from an imperfect mom, which is me. I have two children with ADHD who are now young adults, one boy, one girl, who are each wildly different and their own authentic people. And our journey flipped my world upside down, and I became a parent or a student of ADHD, an advocate, the author of my book, as Anthony said. And I host a podcast where I interview experts and advocates in ADHD. I am still a very human mom who learned to navigate the ups and downs of parenting a child with ADHD with less panic and more grace. It has been a journey of a lifetime for me. I'm working on it every day, just like you all are as well. This journey also changed my whole career path, if you will. Over time, I have become a certified whole person coach, an ADHD executive function parent coach as well, which means some people ask me what does whole person means. My point of view on coaching is I look at the well-being of the entire family, which includes the child, but also the parents and siblings, grandparents. I take a whole person approach in my coaching when we're talking about how ADHD affects literally everybody. Um, Anyway, okay, I blend strategy and compassion in my thing, and I tailor my coaching to what your needs are. So that's a little bit about kind of what whole person is, and we build strategies and boundaries, and we learn how to parent our child and move forward with goals that everybody wants to work on. Okay, so let's start with my own story. The moment that changed everything for me, my son was in first grade, and his teacher used public behavior charts, which were green, yellow, red. So everyone in the classroom knew whether you were having a good day or not, right? And week after week, my son landed on red. And at the age of 6, a label began to stick called the bad kid, right? And his confidence shrank at 6 years old. My confidence shrank when his shrank. Some parents stepped back from us, right? Was my kid turning into that kid? I call it. And when I asked for help from the school, they said, this is the system that works for everyone. And it wasn't working for my child. And that is the moment I realized I needed a new lens, a new strategy, a new plan on life. I was lucky. So my kids are young adults now. So we're talking, gosh, like 15, 16 years ago, where finding ADHD support was incredibly difficult. It's still not easy, but you can find it. And I was lucky. I found a coach. She was a therapist and also a coach who had incredibly deep understanding in ADHD and how it affected the family system, the child, the whole works. She was incredible, and I feel lucky to this day that I found her, and she is the one who showed me the way. I didn't even know I was really looking for this person, but I did find her, and she showed me what to do. And the first step was she's like, you got to go get a formal assessment and see what's going on. So we went off and did that, and ADHD was part of his profile. It wasn't the only thing. Um, but ADHD was probably the most difficult part, I would say, of his profile. So anyway, from there, then she coached me on, she really sat me down and said, look, you got to understand what ADHD is and what it isn't and how it's going to affect your child and the family. And from there, let's look into how school and home life and all of that needs to go so it works for everybody going forward. And so that's what we did. And we went from a kid who was seeming bad and going to be failing in life to a paradigm where how do we support this child and our family to get through life in a good way? Two lessons I carry with myself to this very day. The first is going to be forgiveness. And it's not about forgiving my child for who he is or my other child. It's none of that. It's about, I had to learn how to forgive basically everybody around me and including myself, and for the ignorance that I saw in administrators, in some school teachers, not all, in misunderstanding from friends and from other parents and from, we met experts who weren't going to meet us where we were at, right? So like, it's just, there's layers of forgiveness on a daily basis. I think for what this kindness summit is, you could also look at it, it's just showing kindness to people for not knowing what they don't know. I call it forgiveness, and it really helps me to move out of feeling shameful for what living in this land of shame, if you will. It doesn't teach regulation, and it doesn't help anything. And it really just personally for me as a parent frees me of energy so that I can focus more on what steps do we need to take? Where do I need to advocate? How do we move forward? How do I help my child grow into the best version of themselves? So that is one thing I take with me every day. And the second one is imperfection, that not every day is going to be a great day. All these systems, structures, boundaries that we're instructed to put in place, they're not always going to work, right? We're going to live in the middle. Not every day has to be perfect. Not every day has to be run by systems. It's exhausting, to be honest. And so you have to find that balance of imperfection and just simply be human and find where that humanness lives for you and for your child and in your family. So my promise today is we're going to talk about the myths that drain parent confidence and get into the reality of what raising a child with ADHD is, so you can kind of regain your confidence, if you will, and hopefully feel like you're able to be more discerning as you move forward with your child and your family. Okay, so let's start with what ADHD is. And ADHD is a way of being in the world. You cannot change a person who has ADHD into to a person who doesn't have ADHD, right? So ADHD is not an IQ problem. It is not a character flaw of a person. It's more about how their executive functioning system works. And I think you have several guests coming who are going to educate you about all of the executive functions that are included in what characterizes ADHD, if you will. It includes attention, working memory, emotional regulation, initiation, motivation, etc. And I'm going to do a lot of plane analogies today. So think of your executive functioning system as the air traffic controller at an airport. And when your executive functioning system works in a different way, it can be harder for all of the planes, like the control tower, to land all the different things that are going on in our brain with our executive functioning system. And then you have to layer onto that, the executive functioning system, all these other friends that come with ADHD, which I call them friends. And it's different for each person who has ADHD. It could be anxiety, depression, trauma, um, learning disabilities. A new one is tech addiction, right? So you have to consider all of these in the whole person of having ADHD. What is really affecting them, and what are the things that are really getting in the way of them living their life and being the best version of themselves. So why do myths spread? Uh, I think they spread. ADHD is big business. People click on the word ADHD, so it's really misused in our media and in our culture and in our classrooms and with our peer group. It's misused. It's a very misunderstood word, and I think it's very prone for myths to spread that sit in our psyche, and as parents, kind of prevent us from making the decisions that we need to be making decisions about. So if you think about our culture right now is designed on compliance, which means if you don't comply with what is, it means you didn't try. And that's not true, especially if you have ADHD, right? And our culture also prizes speed and neatness over growth, personal growth, right? It's all about productivity versus nurturing your own personal growth and helping you grow up with a strong sense of yourself. That is not the mission of our culture nowadays. Social media is hijacking these myths, right? And that hijacks our nervous system, and it convinces us that we're failing as parents and that we're not good enough. So we have to be careful of all of these things and reframe the lens of how we're considering ADHD in this case in our child's life, and use the behavior as information and not a moral grade. And that really sits on the parent to process that and determine how you're going to hold those values within your family and your child who's struggling with their ADHD. So let's get into the myths. But before, let's do one more analogy on, this is my flight analogy. Parenting can feel like big turbulence, right? And so when you're flying in the plane, the seatbelt sign will ding, your heart skips, everyone grips the armrest. Some people scream out, some people grab the person next to them, some people start praying, right? We all handle difficult moments in different ways, and there's no right or wrong way to handle that turbulence. And parenting an ADHD kid can definitely feel like this. I wish I could see the feedback because I'm sure many of you are nodding your heads on how that feels. So before we kind of get into the myths, what I did want to do is just a little grounding moment and have everybody just, I think we need grounding in just how our culture is now. And then you layer in a child who's neurodiverse, maybe you're neurodiverse as well. And the days can feel like you're riding in a very turbulent plane every day. And so it's very important to get grounded in yourself so that you can find calm. And it really does help you kind of see the landscape and help you move through life a little bit better. So just take a minute to feel your feet on the ground, wiggle around in your seat, if you will, and make sure you're comfortable. That Anthony has a great day planned ahead here. And it's just very important that we get grounded in ourselves and that we just take a couple of deep breaths each day and just feel ourselves within our own bodies, right? So we can get through the day. Drop your shoulders and just be here. So that's my little reminder to take time each day to do that for yourself. And it helps us stay calm as we think about the weight of the myths that are to come. So myths lived in my head for a long time. I've had to do a lot of work on this, right? Because they sit in my head. And even on social media today, when I see things that people say, right, it gets into your subconscious, right? And it makes you doubt yourself. It makes you question yourself. It's always got a little tiny bit of truth in it, but there's also some shame involved in there. Often it's an extreme opinion, saying something very extreme about what needs to happen in your parenting or in your life. And the reaction to that is that the response, whether subconscious response to that, is really either that it makes you want to say, oh my gosh, I'm going to like control everything, right? I got to control my household. I got to control my kid. And you just lock down. Um, or the flip side is like, this is just too hard. And you just let go of everything. You just let your child just say, I'm not going to be able to do it, right? And you let go of everything. We let go of our boundaries, our rules, our values. We can move into these extremes at parents. So I'm here today to remind you, you do not need to do that. And it's really in the middle where you get to live as a parent. So this is my analogy for this morning, which is hope. And let me give you my checklist on what each one of these means. So hope means to hold steady. Um, this is not an easy journey, and your voice and your calm really makes a difference when you're raising a child who can be dysregulated quite easily. And even if your tone of voice is just slightly more calm than your child in a dysregulated moment, can make a huge difference. And so if we go to the grounding and just taking breath and feeling your feet and those kind of things before the dysregulation happens can make a huge difference in how you're able to hold yourself steady during difficult moments. The O is for observe clearly. Again, when you're grounded and calm, you can observe what's going on and see what's tricky. Where are things going well? Where are everything's green lights, right? Some days for months, for a year, it can be everything's kind of cooking and doing really well. Other times, right, some things are going well, some things are kind of, you see an orange button on the plain screen, or sometimes there's a red alarm going off. Observing and putting your attention where like the red alarm is going can be very helpful in determining what action steps to take as you move forward. P is for plan small, short, tiny steps. And be repetitive on them. That is how you build executive functioning skills over time. And the E is for evolve together. After landing the plane, it's always important to debrief. What are you going to keep? What worked? What didn't? Go around about it. And that is how you learn how to fly with raising an ADHD child. It's personal parent growth as well as child growth. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the myths. I have 10 of them. Take notes and let me know what you think at the end of this presentation. We can talk about them in more detail. Okay, so extreme or perfect actions are required when you're raising a child with ADHD. The reality of that is not true. Living in the messy middle, if you will, is where it is at. This is not about being perfect and putting all of these systems in place that run like the military does. That's not reality. That is not being human. We're not looking to be robots. The goal is to put in flexible structure and doing a lot of repair with each other, out loud and together and regrouping. And that is how a family moves forward. My example of in the morning, if you want to do, I think as parents, I got stuck in this trap too, right? You want to kind of like have every step go a certain way to get out the door in the morning. And the reality is to keep it as simple as possible. Sometimes your child has to just learn one step, which might be putting their feet on the floor in the morning when they wake up. And that's what you're working on for like 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year. Um, and the other middle of it is like it's just like eat, shoes, door, right? Just three things. And that's the best you can do. And if it doesn't, and it's not every day is going to go great, right? And that is okay. And that's the messy middle that we live in. Myth 2 is ADHD is caused by poor parenting. Parenting does not cause ADHD. ADHD is a neurological neurodevelopment disorder, if you will. It's a dysfunction in the executive functioning system. It's a way of being in the world. It is not caused by bad parenting. However, parents have a critical role in helping their ADHD child grow up to be the best version of themselves. So learning how to parent a child with ADHD is a critical step, and that is your role when you have a child who struggles. Okay, myth 3, medication is the silver bullet. Medication is a helpful tool. However, it doesn't teach your child how to build skills in their executive functioning system so that they can grow up and be a full functioning, participating adult, if you will. So medication takes, I like to say it takes the edge off. It quiets the noise and sharpens the signal, if you will. But kids, even if they're on meds, still need to be working on building their skills, learning how they need scaffolding, they need boundaries, they need to feel belonged and loved. And medication alone is not going to solve all these things that are coming up with their having their ADHD. And it's a big deal to make sure that you work with a really smart prescriber of medications. And you also want to make sure you're not over medicating your child in the effort of trying to make them less ADHD. Okay, number 4, hope for the best is the best strategy. Unfortunately, the reality is hope does not get created out of nowhere. You have to take action to have things move forward in a positive way. So just hoping for the best or just praying that everything works out is not going to get you to where you want your child to be. They need you to take steps that are going to help them grow up to have a good sense of who they are. Okay, myth 5. We are the only family going through this like this. You are not the only family going through this like this. It's I feel like this. Parents can feel very alone. You can look at your husband or your spouse and be like, there's no one else in the world who's going through this like we are. And the reality is lots of families all over the world are. You are not alone in this. I'm highly encouraging you to seek out support and resources, people that you can connect to, that can hear you. Sometimes just talking things out can make a huge difference in not feeling so alone. And literally, it can normalize what's going on in your own family. So you don't feel like it can only be happening like this within your family. Okay, number 6, everyone has a little ADHD, right? Wrong. ADHD is a really serious diagnosis and it needs to be taken serious. And if you're here listening, you know this. Not everyone is a little ADHD. Just because you have some, like, have a hard time focusing is the big one, right? you can have a hard time focusing and not have ADHD. And ADHD is about having impairments in several different parts of executive functioning, and it shows up for kids. It needs to show up both at home and at school and in other environments, and that's how they determine whether you have ADHD. But not everyone is a little ADHD, even though they feel like they might be. Unless you have ADHD, you don't really know, or love somebody with it, you don't really know how impairing it can be on a person. And I think if our world understood that a little bit better, not everybody would take on the title of saying they have ADHD. Number 7, the myth about ADHD headlines are facts. I talked about this a little bit at the beginning. ADHD headlines are, most of them are salacious and trying to get clickbait. And you need to, probably the wisest thing to do when you're reading a headline about ADHD is check the source. Use your own discernment. Are they trying to hijack my nervous system to get me to click on what they're saying? What is their motive, right? And then if you need to read the headline and let it go. Look at your child for who they are, what is in their way, where do they need support, and what part of this is ADHD, what part of this could be learning disabilities, trauma, anxiety, depression. Look at your whole child and do not try to put these headlines into defining who your child is. Myth number 8, my child's school will know how to support them. So this is a big one. I think this is one that all parents end up realizing that school is a tough place for kids with ADHD. Schools mean well, teachers and educators mean well. Your child showing up with ADHD and possibly learning disabilities is not the first child to show up at their school with ADHD. There's probably more than one child in the classroom with ADHD. So you're definitely not alone in this. Schools mean well with kids who struggle, but they don't always have the resources and the means to be able to support the child in the way that the child needs to be supported. So this is where parent advocacy becomes critical throughout the child's life, going through school until they're, when they hit college, you got to let go of that and let them take responsibility for that. But you will play an active role in advocating for them and making sure their needs are met by the school. And some years you're going to get great teachers who understand it. In my limited scope on all this, usually it's because they have their own child with ADHD, or they know somebody close to them that has ADHD, or they just are educated in it. And so you're going to get some great teachers, and you're not going to get some not so great teachers. So you have to constantly advocate. And the best way to do that is, nowadays is to send an email and just check in with the teacher, be on their team and support the teacher to help them support your child. And you can just point out maybe 2 or 3 things that your child needs that help them in the classroom, can be very beneficial for your teacher and for your child. And if you're working together with your teacher, that's going to help you too when conflicts and issues arise. Okay, myth number 9, screens are harmless. Absolutely not. I think you have somebody coming to get more into this. Screens are hijacking our children's dopamine, and it kills motivation. It makes sleep hard. They don't want to learn if they're spending too much time on screens. The reality is, it's sucking the soul out of all of us, to be honest. And the danger moving ahead for kids is if screens are considered no big deal, As your child gets older, that screen is going to be the dominant thing in their life. So you have to always consider, how does screen life look in my child today versus how does that look for them when they're 22? And if they're on the screens all the time at age 9, I guarantee they will be on the screens all the time at 22 when you want them to be getting a college degree, getting certified in something, getting a job. It will become incredibly challenging. So screens don't get better over time, especially if they have ADHD and any neurodiversity. So it is something to consider and to limit in your child's life so that they can grow up and kind of know who they are outside of screen time. And number 10, if I explain ADHD to my child, they will change. So I included this one because I hear this one a lot. I think I even went through this. I tested this out myself too. So it is good to tell your child about ADHD and how ADHD is affecting them, because you want them to be able to learn about themselves so that they can advocate for themselves as they grow up. So that is a critical piece, because you want your child to take agency over their own life and be making decisions that work for them and being resourceful in a way that works for them. However, if you are trying to educate your child about all the things about ADHD in the hopes that they will internalize it and start acting and thinking differently, that is not going to work. So that is why I included that myth, and I hope that that makes sense. So use it for giving them agency in their life to be resourceful and advocate for themselves, but not in the hopes that they will change and be different because they have an understanding of ADHD. So this goes back into a little bit of my personal life. And the moment I stopped trying to cure, ignore, or force ADHD into the clear skies, I became a student in ADHD, and I chose compassion, especially when the seatbelt came on, which it came on a lot, right? And on my journey, what I wanted to share with you is just the wisdom of going through this for, a couple decades now. That learning how to advocate is a critical skill. Learning when to listen to your child and other people in your family and work through that, whatever the struggle may be, is a key skill. And then also learning when to rest and take a break. Kids with ADHD need more downtime than a typical kid. So keep that in mind too. Resting, downtime is a critical piece of being together, being in a family. It could be a family value that is very beneficial. Our culture really prides ourselves on being overproductive, and that doesn't serve ADHD kids well. They do need time to do other things, not necessarily on the screen. Let's talk about things like being outside, art, music, sports, all the creative things that we can do in our life that are interesting to your child can really be restorative to them. Okay, so I have a couple little toolkits to share with you. One is the pre-flight, if you will, and that is that it is okay, and it is actually very helpful to preview to your child what is to come. So for example, if you look at the nighttime routine, it is okay to preview to your child what is going to be happening. So we're going to take, you got to take a shower, put your pajamas on, and then we're going to read a book. It's prompting, like showing them the runway, what is to come. It could be in the morning, getting out the door, right? Eat, shoes, backpack, we hit the door, right? It's previewing what to come That helps an ADHD child kind of get their focus back, remind them of what's happening. It's giving them the steps of what to come. So previewing is a very helpful skill for parents to use. The other skill is, and I cannot see what I wrote there. Oh, to prompt. Okay, so it is okay to prompt your child on what they need to do. And I think a trap parents get into is they're like, well, that seems like that's, we read these headlines, we see this stuff on social media, right? And it gets in our head. These myths get in our head, and then we get confused about what we should be doing that's in the best interest of our child and our family sanity. So this is why I wanted to remind you that it is okay to prompt your child on what's to come. And in fact, they may need that support. I wanted to check. So here was my example about prompting is, a good way to connect with your child too is to remind them that you're on the same team. So this example is for homework. So, we're on the same team. I'm here to help you transition to the homework time. And you could say, I'm going to help you with the first problem of math. I'll be here for 2 minutes, and then I'm going to get up and you can take it from there, right? You can prompt and get your child going. You can start the initiation. And provide some structure, right, to help them get started on their homework. So that is completely acceptable in the land of parenting an ADHD child. Okay, and then another tip I have is when turbulence hits, it is imperative that you work on the repair and not get too focused on every single thing that's turbulent in your child's life within your family dynamic needs a consequence and needs to be like, you don't need to yell at them for every single thing. You don't have to put consequences on every single thing that goes wrong. What is most important is that you get grounded in yourself, that you hold steady in those turbulent times, and that you repair what has happened in that turbulence. And you go back, you talk out loud. Talking out loud to your child and working through problems builds executive functioning thinking. It helps them think about thinking. It helps them learn how to solve problems. So it's a very valuable time in working with your child on how to solve problems that come up in these turbulent moments. So it is time well spent, and the repair has many benefits. It benefits the relationship. It's building executive functioning skills. It's learning how to solve problems, and learning how to move forward despite turbulence. That builds resilience. So this is a really key step. As I talked about earlier, it's going to be turbulent, and the repair and taking that time is going to be very, very valuable over time, over the years, as your child grows up to become an adult. So we'll go back to my hope analogy. So hope, the H was about hold steady, keep yourself steady, and that reflection of yourself holding steady will mean the world to your child. And that they will learn how to regulate themselves by looking to you as you hold steady in the storms and the bumps that happen. O is for observe. Again, when you get grounded, this helps to observe, like, where are things getting tricky? Where are things hard? When you are able to step back and observe, it helps determine where's the bump here? Where's the issue? And that is where you put your attention to help support your child. And it's different for every kid on how it shows up and where it shows up, what age. So it's really important to observe where are things tricky and where do we need to put support around that. The P is for, what did I say? Oh, plan small. Yeah. Tiny, everything's tiny steps, right? And repetitive. Plan small, little trips, be repetitive, find the flow and find the pattern. I should do P for pattern, truly. It's like setting patterns. It supports the executive functioning system. It builds skills, routine, tiny patterns. That is how a child with ADHD learns to kind of find their groove in your life, if you will. And E is for evolve, which is you're going to evolve together with your child. There's no perfect, it's a messy middle. Your child's going to teach you a tremendous amount about yourself. And they're going to make you rise up to be a better parent, or you can choose not to be, but they will make you rise up to be a better parent, a better person, a more compassionate person. They're going to level up your skills. And in that cycle of energy, if you will, you're going to be helping them evolve as people to grow up to be their most authentic selves as well. So embrace it all. And this is how you learn to fly in weather. It's going to be turbulent, but it is possible. I'm here. I'm representing over 24 years of doing this. And I've turned into a coach myself. I love the work. I love the progress that I see families make. It's been one of the greatest pleasures of my life. And so here's my website, ADHDkidscanthrive.com. You can find out more about me there. So thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Kate, that was wonderful. It was awesome. Thank you. And I know it's early morning for you out in the San Francisco side. So
we're seeing the sunrise.
I know, isn't that great? Isn't that great? So listen, we got a number of questions that we want to bounce off you.
Okay.
And then whatever we don't get to, we'll send them to Kate and then have her respond, and we'll issue the questions out to everybody. But one of them is, how does a child or adult quiet the chaos? Like, so when you're using your flight example, let's think about Chicago. Chicago's got lots of lanes and everybody's flying at the same time. The mind goes the same way. How do you quiet the chaos? How can we help a child quiet the chaos that goes on in their mind?
Okay, so you can't quiet. So we don't have control over our child's mind, but we can support their mind for what it is. So if you're thinking about like all these planes, what really supports that chaos of what they have is structure, flow in life. I talked about P for patterns, right? Patterns, like routine. I wake up in the morning, I go to the breakfast table, I eat, I grab my backpack, my shoes are in one spot, they're not all over the house, right? And we walk out the door. It's simplifying, creating patterns and flow, if you will, that helps the chaos. And then I'm going to say on the other end of that, that's to help your kid get through school, right? And get out the door on time and meet these deadlines. In homework time, there's patterns, right? Same time every day for homework really helps, which the pattern might look like they come home from school, you give them protein, they get a little movement if they need that, whatever floats their boat in the movement. Protein is important to kind of regulate they probably haven't eaten very well, right? So you want to get their glucose levels regulated again. And then they sit down in the homework center of your house, wherever you've determined that, and that's where homework happens, right? So that's another pattern. But on the flip side with the chaos is really to play to their strengths on what brings them joy. And they need to do that every day. So if it's exercise and movement and playing outside, the boys need a tremendous amount of physical activity. So you got to build that into your life that helps calm the chaos, and they need to take that into their adult life Theater is a great one. Music is a great one. For each kid, it's going to be different about what is that joy. Screen should not be the joy. Screen should not be what's bringing them joy. It's got to be something offline that's creative and movement, and that quiets the chaos. It eases anxiety. It keeps depression away. These are things that kids with ADHD are very prone to as they get older. And these are very simple tools that we all have access to help keep that at bay and calm that chaos. So
Great.
I can't stress that one enough.
Great. Hey, Kate, can you take the share down, please?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So another question for you. How do you help siblings understand ADHD without resentment or comparison?
Yeah, that's a big one in families.
Yeah.
So siblings, you need to talk a lot as a family about what's going on. Don't act like it's like a separate, don't act like it's not going on. The difficulty within your family with the child with the ADHD who's struggling, you got to talk about it. You got to talk about what's happening. Would just say to be as real as you can. You don't have to get into the technicalities of what ADHD is. It's more about like, oh, your brother or your sister's having a hard time, right? And here's a strategy when your brother or sister is having a hard time. Make them part of the plan, right? And the siblings will become more compassionate people if you're talking about it. They will
Mhm.
grow up to be incredibly empathetic, passionate people
Yeah.
who
That's,
understand people who are different than them. And that is gold,
mhm.
right? And so it's very important. My strategy would be to just talk about it and don't act like it's not going on. Talk about it, spend time with the siblings separate from the child that's having the difficulty, um, and give them their own time and their own space to be parented by you, so that they can feel like they have a good relationship with their parents and make them part of the team depending on the maturity of that sibling, right? They can be very supportive. They can help teach the
Right.
child with ADHD skills, connection. That relationship could be very valuable to them as they grow up. So it doesn't have to be all bad, but it'd be very transparent and talk. It's that repair. The
Mhm.
repair of talking through things is just so invaluable and healing, as everybody grows up. Um, so
So
that's what
true.
I'd say.
It's hard being a parent today, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
it's challenging. It's challenging when you have one or two or three children. And we can remember how Anthony used to bother the girls, and then the girls would get upset with him. But as he got older, and as they got older, they understood just how important it was to spend time with their brother. So,
Yeah.
another question for you here is how do you explain ADHD to your child in a way that empowers them?
So play to their strengths.
Hmm.
To be empowering is, each ADHD kid, the ADHD kids are not monolithic, right? They don't all look exactly the same,
Hmm.
have the same problems, have the same struggles. There's like categories that we can
Right.
kind of put them in, but how they navigate that is different based on the kid and their family and the culture that they're in. So, um, to build their, first of all, ADHD is a part of who they are, but it's not who they are. So I think with kids, the focus cannot be on their ADHD, but play to their strengths, right? What's working for them? Where are they thriving? Where are they? Most kids with ADHD have deficits in some part of their executive functioning system, but not in all. And in fact, a lot of them excel in other aspects, right?
Hmm.
So that focus on where they're excelling and where their strengths are, because ultimately that's where they need to grab onto as they become adults too. And that needs to lead the way for them as they go into adulthood versus like all of these where the deficits are in life, right? And then they need to learn where those deficits are to put support around and be resourceful and they can figure out like kind of how to make life work.
Yeah. It's hard though. It's hard when when a child's hearing all the negatives and parents are hearing all the negatives, and you gotta step back and say, these are the things that you're good at, right?
Yeah,
These
you
are the
can't
things
buy
that
into it. You
make you
can't
you.
buy into it.
That's right.
You cannot. That's my number one. That was one of my things, forgiveness. You forgive the people around you who do not know better.
Yeah.
It's a daily practice. And the idea is you cannot buy into it. You cannot buy into what other people think you are doing or not doing and what your child is. You cannot do it.
Yeah. And you just answered one other question. There was a question, what one small daily change made the biggest difference in your parenting journey? I think you just answered that. So
Well, forgiveness and being
yeah,
imperfect.
that's
I
right.
mean, let me tell you, I am not standing here from a place where I did everything correctly. I
Yeah.
did a lot of things the wrong way. And in fact, I started the ADHD Kids podcast. It was a healing journey for me. I do that all for public service. It was for my own healing, interviewing all of these experts in all these different aspects of just, I felt like it was just so hard to access information and
Mhm.
get the tools that we needed. Right. And I just wanted to make it a platform that made it easier for others, to make it easier for them versus me. That's the whole reason I started. I didn't start it for any other reason. And it was really healing to me, but it is very, very challenging to find the right resources. And so what you're doing is like incredible.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, you too. I mean, if any, I'll tell you, you have to go listen to Kate's podcast. Everybody that's out there, go listen to her podcast, tie them in, save them, listen to them as many times as you want. And she always has some great, great people on to share. So, so Kate, there's about 5 more other questions here that we're going to send to you if you don't mind answering them back to us, and then we'll share them with the rest of the group.
okay,
But
great.
we loved having you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure. Good luck with the rest of the day.
Thank you. Appreciate you very much. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to our podcasts. We hope you're getting a lot out of them. Now we have to ask you for your help.
First, if you like our videos and podcast, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss an important episode. Our team puts a lot of effort into bringing you the best leaders and voices in the ADHD space. And if you wouldn't mind sharing them, we sure would appreciate it.
Second, we need your help to help these wonderful kids that are struggling with the challenges of ADHD. Your donation is an investment in giving a family the opportunity to get the right care for their child through our care model and our care roadmap. Every donation goes to helping these families that cannot cover the cost of care. Any amount helps. If you want to be a sponsor for our YouTube podcast channel, we would love to talk with you.
And most importantly, a little bit of kindness goes a long way, especially for kids with ADHD.
Thank you for your continued support.